The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Union stretched across a vast expanse of polished obsidian that seemed to swallow light rather than reflect it. The chamber's walls curved upward into a dome painted with the star maps of 100 civilizations, and at its center stood a floating platform where representatives from hundreds of species gathered in concentric rings. The air was thick with the scent of alien pheromones, the hum of universal translators, and the ever-present tension of interspecies politics. Amanda Klein, Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, sat straight-backed in her chair, her dark hair pulled into a severe bun that matched her mood. Her blue diplomatic uniform, adorned with the silver Earth insignia, was immaculate as always, but beneath her composed exterior, frustration bubbled like magma beneath a dormant volcano. "Honorable representatives," intoned Sithra, the ancient insectoid delegate from the Vespan hives. His mandibles clicked rhythmically as he spoke, a sound that still made Amanda's skin crawl even after 5 years as Earth's ambassador. "We must address the most pressing matter before this assembly, the color scheme of our diplomatic vestments for the upcoming centennial celebration." Amanda fought the urge to slam her fist on the obsidian table. Instead, she took a deep breath and let her gaze wander around the chamber. The representatives of nearly 300 species sat in their designated areas, some floating in specialized environments, others requiring complex life support systems just to survive in the shared atmosphere of the council chamber, all of them engaged in heated debate about colors. A century had passed since Earth had joined the Galactic Council, becoming the newest member of an interstellar community that spanned thousands of light years. Humanity had been welcomed enthusiastically, their adaptability, resourcefulness, and unique perspective valued by the older species. Initially, Earth had thrived, establishing colonies on distant planets, sharing and developing new technologies, and becoming an integral part of galactic politics. But over the decades, something had changed. The Council, once a beacon of cooperation and progress, had devolved into a quagmire of bureaucracy and pointless debate. Real problems, piracy in the Outer Rim, devastating plagues on colony worlds, resource inequities between species, were perpetually tabled in favor of trivial matters, like the proper protocol for addressing the gaseous representatives from Ceylon Prime, or, as was currently the case, the color scheme for ceremonial robes. Amanda's comm unit vibrated against her wrist. She glanced down discreetly, reading the urgent message from Captain Dan Lee, commander of Earth's Defense Forces. Urgent. Third attack on human merchant vessels in the Perseus Arm, 27 casualties. Significant cargo loss. Request immediate council intervention. The volcano inside Amanda threatened to erupt. She cleared her throat and raised her hand, the motion causing the silver band on her wrist to glow, signaling her desire to speak. "The chair recognizes Earth Representative Amanda Klein," announced the current council chair, a gelatinous being from the water worlds of Aquarius 9. "Esteemed colleagues," Amanda began, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil, "while I appreciate the cultural significance of appropriate attire for the centennial, I must bring to the Council's attention a matter of far greater urgency. Human merchant vessels are being systematically targeted by pirates in the Perseus Arm. This is the third such attack this month. Lives have been lost. I formally request that the Council redirect its security forces to patrol the affected sectors immediately." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Zithra's compound eyes swiveled toward her, their facets reflecting the chamber's soft light. "Representative Klein," he said, his translator rendering his clicks into the common galactic language. "The security agenda has been set for the next 16 rotations. As you know, any changes must be proposed, seconded, debated, and then put to a vote. I suggest you file the appropriate documentation for consideration at next month's session." Next month? Amanda's composure cracked slightly. By then, dozens more ships could be attacked. The livelihood of entire colonies is at stake. "Rules exist for a reason. Representative," chirped Calax, a bird-like delegate from the avian concordat. "We cannot simply abandon our established procedures because one species faces difficulties." Amanda glanced around the chamber, searching for allies. Her gaze fell on John Moreau, her deputy and longtime friend. He gave her a slight nod, his expression grim. They both knew what this meant: another delayed response, more lives lost, and further erosion of Earth's faith in the Council's effectiveness. "Very well," Amanda said finally. "I will submit the formal request, but I would like it noted in the record that Earth strongly protests the Council's inability to respond swiftly to matters of life and death." "Noted," said the chair, already moving on. "Now, returning to the matter of ceremonial colors." Amanda tuned out the subsequent debate, focusing instead on composing a message to Earth's government. Her fingers flew over her comm unit, outlining the situation and the Council's response, or lack thereof. This wasn't the first time she'd had to report such failures, and she doubted it would be the last. As the endless session continued, Amanda's thoughts drifted to her home planet. Earth had changed dramatically since first contact a century ago. The initial shock and wonder had given way to a complex integration with galactic society. Humanity had adapted, as it always did, but not without cost. Earth's unique cultural identity was gradually being subsumed into the homogenized galactic mainstream. Their technological development, once autonomous and innovative, was now guided, some would say constrained, by Council protocols and standards. And what had they gained in return? Protection that arrived too late, if at all. Access to a market where human goods were consistently undervalued. A voice in a forum where that voice was routinely ignored. The grand promise of galactic unity seemed increasingly hollow. Hours later, as the session finally adjourned with the color debate still unresolved, Amanda made her way to her private office in the Earth Embassy section of the massive council complex. John Moreau was waiting for her, his tall frame leaning against her desk, arms crossed over his chest. "That was quite a show in there," he said, as the door closed behind her. "I thought you might actually flip the table at one point." Amanda sighed, sinking into her chair. "Don't think I wasn't tempted." She rubbed her temples, feeling the beginnings of a headache. "How many more times can we go through this, John? They debate napkin folding while our people die." John nodded, his expression somber. He was older than Amanda by almost 20 years, with streaks of gray in his dark hair and lines etched around his eyes from decades of diplomatic service. "It's getting worse, not better. The Council wasn't always like this. There was a time when they actually accomplished things." "So I've heard," Amanda replied dryly. "Before my time, apparently. The question is, what do we do now?" John pushed himself away from the desk and began pacing. "We've tried working within the system. We've tried building coalitions with like-minded species. We've even tried threatening to withhold our technological contributions. Nothing changes." Amanda stared out the viewport behind her desk. The sprawling council complex stretched before her, its architecture a bewildering mix of styles reflecting the diverse species who had contributed to its construction. Beyond it lay the capital city of the Galactic Union, a metropolis of impossible structures and teeming with life forms from across the galaxy. It was beautiful, in its way, and utterly disconnected from the realities faced by ordinary beings trying to survive on the fringes. "I need to speak with the president," she said finally. "This can't continue." Later that night, in the secure communications room of the Earth Embassy, Amanda stood before a holographic projection of President Elena Rodriguez. Despite being tens of thousands of light years away on Earth, The president's image was crystal clear, her expression grave as Amanda recounted the day's events. "It's not just today, Madam President," Amanda concluded. "It's a pattern that's been worsening for years. The council is paralyzed by its own procedures, incapable of addressing real crises, and humanity suffers for it." President Rodriguez nodded slowly. She was in her second term, a shrewd politician with a background in interstellar economics. "Your assessment matches the reports I've been receiving from our colonies. The situation in the Perseus Arm is particularly concerning. Captain Lee informs me that we've lost almost 15% of our interstellar trade capacity in the last quarter alone." "The council won't act," Amanda said flatly, "not in time to make a difference." "Then perhaps it's time we considered other options." The president's voice was measured, but Amanda detected an undertone of steel. "The council membership comes with benefits, certainly, but also with constraints. Constraints that may no longer be serving Earth's best interests." Amanda felt a flutter of surprise, followed by a surge of something like hope. "Are you suggesting what I think you are, Madam President?" "I'm suggesting nothing, officially," Rodriguez replied carefully, "but I am authorizing you to begin discreet consultations with our key allies among the council species, test the waters, see how they might react if Earth were to reevaluate its relationship with the Galactic Union." "That's a diplomatic way of putting it," Amanda said, with the ghost of a smile. "I'm a diplomat, Ambassador Klein, so are you, but we're also representatives of humanity, and our first duty is to our own species." The president's image flickered slightly. "Proceed carefully, but proceed. I'll expect your preliminary report within the week." "Yes, Madam President." As the hologram faded, Amanda stood alone in the darkened communication room, the weight of her new directive settling on her shoulders. What the president was suggesting, what they were both contemplating, would fundamentally alter humanity's place in the galaxy. It was thrilling and terrifying. The next morning, Amanda requested a private meeting with Grell, the reptilian representative from Draconid 4. Among the council species, the Draconids had most consistently aligned with Earth's positions, valuing pragmatism over procedure. If anyone would understand Earth's frustrations, it would be Grell. They met in one of the council complex's countless garden spaces, this one designed to mimic the arid landscapes of Draconid 4. Heat lamps blazed overhead, and the air was dry enough to make Amanda's lips crack. Grell, however, looked perfectly comfortable, his scaled skin glistening in the artificial sunlight. "Ambassador Klein," he greeted her, baring his teeth in what passed for a smile among his kind. "This is an unexpected pleasure." "Thank you for meeting me on such short notice, Ambassador Grell," Amanda replied, taking a seat on a stone bench. "Your message indicated urgency." Grell settled his massive frame beside her, his tail curling around the base of the bench. "I assume this concerns yesterday's council session." "In part," Amanda admitted. "But more broadly, it concerns Earth's growing disillusionment with the Council's effectiveness." Grell's vertical pupils narrowed. "Speak plainly, Ambassador. We are not in the Council chamber now." Amanda took a deep breath. "Earth is considering withdrawing from the Galactic Union." To her surprise, Grell didn't seem shocked. He merely tilted his head, regarding her with those unnerving reptilian eyes. "I have wondered when your species would reach this point," he said finally. "Humans are not known for their patience." "It's not about patience," Amanda countered. "It's about survival. Our colonies are under attack. Our economy is suffering, and the Council does nothing but debate the color of ceremonial robes." "You are not wrong," Grell conceded. "The Council has become inefficient, but withdrawal. That is unprecedented. No species has ever left the Union voluntarily." "Perhaps it's time someone did," Amanda said. "But before we take such a drastic step, I wanted to understand how our allies might react. how Draconid 4 might react. Grell was silent for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the distant artificial horizon. My personal opinion, I would understand, even admire the boldness. But officially, Draconid 4 would have to condemn such an action. The stability of the Union depends on unity. Even if that unity is increasingly meaningless? Especially then, Grell replied, when substance fails, appearance becomes everything. He turned to face her directly. But know this, Ambassador Klein, if Earth chooses this path, you will not be alone in your dissatisfaction. Others may follow. In time, the question is whether humanity is prepared to be first, to face the consequences of breaking what has stood for millennia. Amanda nodded slowly. Thank you for your honesty, Ambassador. That's exactly what I needed to hear. Similar conversations with other potential allies yielded similar results. Private understanding, even sympathy, coupled with official disapproval. No one was willing to publicly support Earth's potential withdrawal, but many seemed to be watching with interest, waiting to see if humans would have the courage to do what many had only contemplated. A week later, Amanda delivered her report to President Rodriguez. The holographic conference included not only the president but also Earth's full cabinet and the heads of the colonial administrations. The stakes were too high for anything less than full consultation. Based on my discussions, Amanda concluded, we can expect official condemnation from all council species if we withdraw. Economic sanctions are likely, at least initially. Some trading partners will cut ties completely, but others, particularly those who have expressed private sympathy for our position, may maintain relations covertly. The real question is whether the benefits of independence outweigh these costs. President Rodriguez nodded thoughtfully. Thank you, Ambassador Klein. Your assessment aligns with our own analysis. She turned to address the entire virtual assembly. Ladies and gentlemen, we stand at a crossroads. For a century, humanity has been part of the Galactic Union, bound by its laws, protected by its forces, constrained by its bureaucracy. Now we must decide whether that arrangement continues to serve Earth's interests. Defense Secretary Wei was the first to speak. From a military perspective, withdrawal would allow us to deploy our forces according to our own priorities. Rather than council directives, we could better protect our colonies and trade routes, but we would also lose access to council intelligence networks and potential military support. Support that rarely materializes anyway, pointed out the Alpha Centauri colonial governor, her voice bitter. My people have been asking for assistance against pirate raids for years. What good is the promise of help that never comes? The debate continued for hours, each member of the assembly weighing in from their perspective, the economic implications, the technological consequences, the cultural impact, the potential for isolation in a hostile galaxy. By the end, a consensus had emerged, though not the one Amanda had expected. It seems we are in agreement, said President Rodriguez finally. Earth will withdraw from the Galactic Union, effective immediately. She turned to Amanda. Ambassador Klein, I am entrusting you with perhaps the most important diplomatic mission in human history, informing the Council of our decision and managing the initial separation. You will have full authority to act on behalf of Earth and all human colonies. Amanda felt a weight settle in her stomach, equal parts dread and determination. I understand, Madam President. When should I make the announcement? At tomorrow's council session, the President replied firmly. No more delays. It's time for humanity to chart its own course among the stars. That night, Amanda barely slept. She paced her quarters in the Earth Embassy, rehearsing her speech, anticipating reactions, planning responses. John Moreau joined her around midnight, bringing a bottle of whiskey from his personal Earth-imported collection. Thought you might need this, he said, pouring 2 glasses. Historic decisions call for historic drinks. Amanda accepted the glass with a grim smile. Is this a celebration or a wake? Both, probably. John settled into a chair, studying her over the rim of his glass. Are you ready for tomorrow? As ready as anyone can be for blowing up a century of galactic politics. She took a sip, welcoming the burn. The real question is whether humanity is ready for what comes after. We survived on our own before we joined the Council, John reminded her. We'll survive on our own again. We're not the same species we were 100 years ago, Amanda countered. We've spread across dozens of star systems. We've integrated alien technology into every aspect of our lives. We've become accustomed to being part of something larger than ourselves. Maybe that's the problem, John said quietly. Maybe we've forgotten how to stand alone. Amanda stared into her glass, watching the amber liquid catch the light. I guess we're about to find out. Morning came too quickly. Amanda dressed with particular care, selecting a formal Earth diplomatic uniform rather than the Council-mandated attire, a small but deliberate statement. John would remain at the embassy, coordinating with Earth and the colonies, ready to implement evacuation protocols for human diplomats if the reaction turned hostile. The Council chamber was as crowded as always when Amanda arrived. Representatives milled about, engaged in their usual pre-session networking and negotiations. Few paid her any special attention. Humans were old news in galactic politics, their novelty long since faded. If only they knew what was coming. When the session began, Amanda waited for the routine matters to be addressed. Reports were delivered, minor resolutions were passed. A territorial dispute between two minor species was referred to committee. Business as usual in the Galactic Union. Finally, there came the traditional call for any new business. Amanda activated her signal band. The chair recognizes Earth Representative Amanda Klein, announced the day's presiding official, a crystalline entity from the silicon-based worlds of the Lithic Collective. Amanda rose from her seat, her heart pounding but her voice steady. Esteemed representatives of the Galactic Council, I come before you today with a matter of utmost significance, not merely for Earth and humanity, but for the future of the Galactic Union itself. A hush fell over the chamber. Perhaps it was her tone, or perhaps the unusually formal language, but something alerted the assembled delegates that this was no ordinary statement. For 100 years, Earth has been a member of this august body. We have contributed our unique perspectives, shared our technologies, fought in your wars, and abided by your regulations. We joined in good faith, believing in the promise of a united galaxy working toward common goals of peace, prosperity, and progress. Amanda paused, her gaze sweeping across the chamber, meeting the eyes, eye stalks, and sensory organs of dozens of different species. That promise has been broken. This council, once a forum for meaningful cooperation, has devolved into a theater of endless procedure and pointless debate. Real crises go unaddressed while trivial matters consume our time and resources. Human lives are lost while this body argues about ceremonial colors. Murmurs of disapproval rippled through the chamber. The chair banged a crystalline appendage for order. Representative Klein, if you have specific grievances, there are proper channels. With all due respect, Amanda interrupted, something almost never done in council proceedings. We have used your proper channels for decades. We have filed the reports, submitted the petitions, followed the procedures, and we have watched our people die waiting for this body to act. The murmurs grew louder. Zethra rose from his seat, mandibles clicking furiously. This is most irregular. The Earth representative must be called to order. Amanda ignored him, her voice rising. Therefore, by the authority vested in me by the President and Government of Earth, I hereby announce humanity's complete and immediate withdrawal from the Galactic Union. Earth renounces all treaties, agreements, and obligations associated with Council membership, effective immediately. The chamber erupted. Delegates leapt to their feet, shouting in dozens of languages that the translators struggled to keep up with. Some seemed outraged, others stunned, a few almost gleeful at the chaos. "Silence!" The chair's amplified voice cut through the tumult. When a semblance of order had been restored, they addressed Amanda directly. "Representative Klein, if you still claim that title, what you propose is unprecedented and quite possibly illegal under union law. No species has ever withdrawn from the Council. There are no provisions for such an action." "That is precisely the problem," Amanda replied calmly. "A union that offers no path to exit is not a union at all. It is a prison. Humanity did not agree to eternal submission when we joined. We reserve the right to leave when membership no longer serves our interests." "This is outrageous," Zithra's voice cut through the renewed murmuring. "The human speaks of broken promises, yet now seeks to break the most fundamental promise of all, the commitment to galactic unity." Amanda turned to face the insectoid delegate directly. "What unity, Ambassador Zithra? The kind that debates ceremonial colors while pirates slaughter human colonists? The kind that took 3 years to approve emergency aid for the Proxima Centauri plague? That is not unity, it is collective negligence masked by procedure. The Council's processes ensure that all voices are heard," countered Calax, the avian representative. "If decisions come slowly, it is because true consensus requires time. And while you take that time, real beings suffer and die." Amanda shot back. "Earth can no longer accept that trade-off. We will protect our own, make our own decisions, forge our own path." The lithic chair's crystalline form vibrated with what might have been anger or distress. "This body cannot simply accept such a unilateral declaration. There must be discussions, transitions, arrangements for ongoing obligations. Earth is prepared to negotiate the terms of our separation," Amanda conceded, "but the decision itself is not negotiable. As of this moment, I no longer speak as a Council representative, but as Earth's ambassador to the galactic community, independent and sovereign." With that, she unpinned the official Council insignia from her uniform and placed it on the obsidian table. The symbolic gesture seemed to drive home the reality of what was happening in a way that words alone could not. Throughout the chamber, delegates watched in stunned silence as Amanda Klein, the human ambassador, turned and walked steadily toward the exit. Behind her, chaos erupted once more. Some delegates were already forming into huddles, frantically discussing the implications. Others were attempting to contact their governments for instructions. A few were shouting for Amanda to be detained, though no one seemed eager to actually attempt it. As the massive doors of the council chamber closed behind her, Amanda allowed herself a moment of pure relief. The deed was done, for better or worse. Humanity had just changed the course of galactic history. John Moreau was waiting in the corridor, his expression a mix of anxiety and anticipation. "Well, it's done," Amanda said simply. "We're out." "And they just let you walk away?" "They were too shocked to stop me, but that won't last. We need to move quickly, initiate evacuation protocols for all human diplomatic personnel, alert our merchant ships to seek safe harbor or return to human space immediately, and get me a secure line to the president. She needs to know that we've just leapt into the void." John nodded, already activating his comm unit. "For what it's worth," he said, as they strode rapidly toward the Earth Embassy section, "I think you did the right thing back there." Amanda wasn't so sure. The weight of what she had just done, speaking for all of humanity, irrevocably altering their place in the galaxy, was beginning to settle on her shoulders. But there was no time for doubt now. Events were in motion, and she needed to ensure that Earth was prepared for what came next. The response from the Galactic Council came more swiftly than Amanda had anticipated. Within hours of her dramatic exit, a formal delegation arrived at the Earth Embassy, led by the Lithic Chair themselves. Amanda received them in the embassy's main conference room, now a hive of activity as human diplomats prepared for evacuation. "Ambassador Klein," the chair began, their crystalline form refracting the room's light in patterns that seemed to reflect their agitation. "The Council requests, no, implores you to reconsider this drastic action. The consequences of withdrawal will be severe for Earth and its colonies." "We are fully aware of the potential consequences," Amanda replied coolly, "and we have determined that they are preferable to continued membership in a body that consistently fails to address our legitimate concerns." "The Council is prepared to make concessions," offered another delegate, a humanoid from the Pleiades Confederation. "Priority status for security operations in human space, expedited procedures for emergency aid requests, a special committee to address the unique needs of Earth colonies." Amanda shook her head. "Too little, too late. For decades, we have asked for these very things, only to be told that such special treatment would violate Council principles of equality. Now, faced with our departure, you suddenly find these accommodations possible? That only confirms that the Council could have addressed our concerns all along, but chose not to." "You must understand," the chair insisted, "the precedent this sets is dangerous. If Earth leaves, others may follow. The very fabric of galactic unity could unravel." "Perhaps it should," Amanda said bluntly. "Perhaps a system that can only maintain itself through the suffering of its members deserves to unravel." The negotiations, if they could be called that, continued for hours. The Council delegation alternated between offering increasingly generous concessions and issuing thinly veiled threats about the consequences of withdrawal. Amanda remained firm. Earth would leave the Union. The only matters open for discussion were the practical aspects of separation. By nightfall, it was clear that no compromise would be reached. The Council delegation departed, promising to return with a formal response from the full assembly. Amanda knew what that response would be: condemnation, sanctions, perhaps even threats of force. But she also knew that the Council rarely acted swiftly, and that delay would work in Earth's favor. Over the next 3 days, the Earth Embassy became a fortress of frantic activity. Diplomatic personnel were evacuated on specially chartered vessels. Sensitive documents were either transferred to secure servers on Earth or destroyed. Communication channels with human colonies throughout the galaxy were established, bypassing the Council's networks. And beyond the embassy walls, the galactic capital churned with rumors and speculation. Alien media outlets ran continuous coverage of the unprecedented crisis. Council representatives issued competing statements, some condemning Earth's actions, others calling for calm and negotiation. The markets fluctuated wildly as traders and corporations tried to anticipate the economic fallout. Through it all, Amanda worked tirelessly, coordinating with Earth and the colonies, managing the evacuation, and preparing for what would come next. Sleep became a luxury she could rarely afford, and meals were hastily consumed at her desk between crisis meetings. On the 4th day, as the last of the human diplomatic corps prepared to depart, Amanda received an unexpected visitor, Grell, the Draconid ambassador. "Ambassador Klein," he greeted her, his reptilian features impossible to read. "I come unofficially, no recording devices, no diplomatic aids, just two beings speaking plainly." Amanda nodded, gesturing to a chair. Her office was nearly bare now, most of its contents already packed or destroyed. "I appreciate the visit. Ambassador Grell, what can I do for you?" "You can tell me," he said, settling his massive frame into the chair, "whether Earth truly understands what it has done." "We understand that we've taken an unprecedented step," Amanda replied carefully. "We understand that there will be consequences." "No," Grell said, his voice unusually somber. "I do not think you do understand. For 100,000 years, The Galactic Union has been the center of interstellar civilization. Species have risen and fallen. Empires have come and gone, but the Union has endured. Until now. He leaned forward, his scaled hands clasped before him. You humans have been part of galactic society for a mere century, an eye blink in cosmic terms. Yet in that brief span, you have integrated yourselves so thoroughly into the fabric of our shared civilization that your sudden withdrawal has sent shockwaves through every corner of the galaxy. That was never our intention, Amanda said. We simply couldn't continue as we were. Intention matters little compared to effect, Grell countered, and the effect of your action has been to destabilize a system that has maintained peace, however imperfect, for millennia. If the system is so fragile that the departure of a single, relatively minor species can destabilize it, Amanda pointed out, then perhaps it was already failing. Grell made a sound that might have been a laugh. Indeed, perhaps it was, and perhaps that is why I am here. He lowered his voice, though they were alone in the room. Draconid IV is watching Earth's path with great interest. Ambassador Klein, as are others. If humanity survives its independence, if you prosper, you may find you are not alone in your dissatisfaction with the old order. Amanda felt a chill run down her spine. Are you saying that Draconid IV might also consider withdrawal? I am saying nothing officially, Grell replied, echoing Amanda's own careful phrasing from their earlier meeting. But unofficially, many eyes are upon you now, human. Many species who have chafed under council restrictions for centuries but lacked the courage to break free. You have shown that courage. Now we wait to see if you also have the strength to endure what comes next. He rose to his feet, towering over her desk. And that brings me to my real purpose in coming here today. A warning, freely given from one who respects your boldness, if not your wisdom. The Council will not let you go easily. Already, there are those calling for more than mere economic sanctions. There is talk of military action, of making an example of Earth to discourage others from following your lead. The Council has no military of its own, Amanda pointed out. It relies on contributions from member species. Who would actually fight such a war? Who would risk their own people to punish humanity for a political decision? Those with the most to lose from the collapse of the current order, Grell said grimly. The ancient species who have shaped Council policy for millennia. The economic powers who benefit from the status quo. They will not send their own forces, no, but they will find proxies, fund mercenaries, supply weapons to those willing to do their bidding. You're saying we should expect war? I am saying you should prepare for it while hoping it does not come. Grell moved toward the door, then paused. One last thing. Ambassador Klein, when the pressure comes, remember who your true enemies are. Not all species who remain in the Council wish you ill. Some of us may even become your allies. In time, if you survive long enough. With that cryptic statement, he departed, leaving Amanda alone with her thoughts and a growing sense of foreboding. She had expected opposition, sanctions, diplomatic isolation, but war, that was a possibility she had hoped to avoid. She activated her comm unit. John, get me the president. We need to talk about defense preparations. 3 months after Earth's dramatic withdrawal from the Galactic Union, Amanda Klein stood on the observation deck of the EAS Defiant, Earth's newest and most advanced warship. Through the transparent aluminum viewport, she watched as the massive vessel slid into formation with a dozen others, the newly constituted Earth Defense Fleet. Earth had been busy in the months since the withdrawal. Freed from Council restrictions on military development, human engineers had worked around the clock to upgrade existing vessels and accelerate the construction of new ones. The fleet before her represented an investment of resources that would have been impossible under Union regulations. which had always limited member species' independent military capabilities. "Impressive, isn't it?" Captain Dan Lee stepped up beside her, his uniform crisp and his posture rigid. As commander of the Defiant, Lee was one of the highest-ranking officers in Earth's expanding military. 3 months ago, we couldn't have fielded half this force. "Necessity drives innovation," Amanda replied, her eyes tracking a squadron of fighters as they executed precision maneuvers around the capital ships. "And we've had necessity in abundance lately." That was an understatement. The Council's response to Earth's withdrawal had unfolded much as Grell had warned. First came the official condemnation, followed swiftly by economic sanctions. Human merchants were barred from Council-controlled ports, which comprised nearly 70% of the established trading networks. Financial assets held in Union institutions were frozen. Technology sharing agreements were terminated. Then came the more insidious measures: pirates and mercenaries, suddenly better armed and more numerous, began targeting human colonies with increasing frequency. Mysterious technical failures plagued human communication networks. Supply shortages appeared in critical resources that Earth had previously imported from Union worlds. Never anything that could be directly attributed to the Council. Of course, nothing that would constitute an overt act of war, just 1,000 small cuts, bleeding humanity slowly, designed to bring them to their knees and beg for readmission to the Union on the Council's terms. But the Council had miscalculated. Humanity, rather than buckling under the pressure, had responded with characteristic adaptability and determination. New trade routes were established with non-Union worlds on the galactic fringe. Manufacturing was ramped up on Earth and its colonies to replace imported goods, and the military buildup had begun in earnest, with resources previously allocated to Council dues and obligations redirected to defense. "Ambassador?" Lee's voice pulled Amanda from her thoughts. "We're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. President Rodriguez is requesting to speak with you." Amanda nodded and followed the captain to the Defiance Communication Center. The president's holographic image appeared before them, her expression grave. "Ambassador Klein, Captain Lee," she greeted them. "I apologize for interrupting your inspection tour, but we've received intelligence that requires immediate attention. Our outpost in the Tau Ceti system has detected a large force approaching, at least 30 vessels, heavily armed. Not pirates this time. These appear to be regular military ships bearing the insignia of the Vespan hives." Amanda felt her blood run cold. The Vespans, Cethra's people, had been among the most vocal critics of Earth's withdrawal, but direct military action, that was an escalation beyond anything they had seen so far. "Are we certain they're targeting our colony?" she asked. "They've made no attempt to communicate or explain their presence," the president replied, "and their course takes them directly to Tau Ceti 4, where we have nearly 50,000 colonists. The outpost commander believes their intentions are hostile." Captain Lee stepped forward. "Madam President, the Defiant can be ready to depart within the hour. With your authorization, we can lead a response force to intercept." "You have it, Captain," Rodriguez said firmly. "Ambassador Klein, I want you to accompany the fleet. If there's any possibility of resolving this diplomatically before it becomes a full-scale conflict, you're our best hope." "Of course, Madam President." Amanda was already calculating transit times and potential scenarios in her head. "But I should note that if the Vespans are acting with Council backing, my presence may not help. They've made it quite clear they consider me persona non grata after the withdrawal. Nevertheless, I want you there." The president insisted. "This could be the defining moment of our independence. Ambassador, if we can defend our colony and demonstrate that humanity cannot be bullied back into the Union, it will send a powerful message. If we fail—" She left the sentence unfinished, but the implication was clear. "We won't fail," Captain Lee stated with absolute conviction. The Defiant was built for exactly this scenario, And the Vespans, for all their bluster, haven't fought a real war in centuries. They've grown soft under council protection. Let's hope it doesn't come to war at all, Amanda said, though she was beginning to doubt that possibility. We'll depart immediately, Madam President, and report when we reach Tau Ceti. The journey to Tau Ceti took 3 days at maximum FTL speed. Amanda spent much of that time in the Defiant's Strategic Command Center, reviewing intelligence on Vespan military capabilities and consulting with Earth's leading experts on Vespan psychology and culture. If there was to be any diplomatic solution, she needed to understand their motivations and potential pressure points. What troubled her most was the unprecedented nature of the Vespan action. In the century since Earth had joined the Galactic Union, there had been no direct military conflicts between member species. Disputes were always handled through council mediation. For the Vespans to bypass those channels and launch what appeared to be a unilateral attack was not just a violation of Union norms, but a fundamental shift in interstellar relations. Had Earth's withdrawal truly destabilized the galaxy so quickly, or was this the Council's doing, a calculated move to make an example of the upstart humans? As the Defiant dropped out of FTL on the edge of the Tau Ceti system, those questions were pushed aside by the immediate tactical situation. The Vespan fleet was already in orbit around Tau Ceti 4, the human colony world. Sensors showed energy signatures consistent with weapons charging, but no shots had been fired yet. "They're hailing us," announced the communications officer as the Defiant and its escort vessels moved into defensive formation. "On screen," ordered Captain Lee. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the chitinous face of a Vespan commander. His compound eyes gleamed with an unsettling intelligence, and his mandibles clicked rhythmically, a sign of agitation that Amanda recognized from her years dealing with Zethra. "Human vessels," the Vespan began, his words translated by the ship's computer. "You have entered a restricted area. The planet designated Tau Ceti 4 is now under Vespan protection. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Captain Lee glanced at Amanda, who stepped forward into the visual pickup range. "This is Ambassador Amanda Klein of Earth. Tau Ceti 4 is a recognized human colony with 50,000 citizens. By what authority do you claim jurisdiction over our world?" The Vespan's mandibles clicked more rapidly. "Ambassador Klein, the instigator of chaos. How appropriate that you should be here to witness the consequences of your actions." His compound eyes seemed to focus more intently. "By the authority of the Galactic Council, we have been tasked with restoring order to this sector following Earth's illegal secession." "The Council has no military authority," Amanda countered, "and Earth's withdrawal was a sovereign decision, not subject to Council approval. The Council's authority extends to maintaining galactic stability," the Vespan replied. "Your withdrawal has created instability. Therefore, intervention is justified. This colony will be placed under Council administration until Earth reconsiders its reckless action." Captain Lee stepped forward again. "Let me be absolutely clear, Commander. Any attempt to occupy our colony or harm our citizens will be met with immediate and decisive force. Earth does not recognize the Council's authority over our sovereign territory." The Vespan made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your species has always been overconfident, Captain. You believe that because you have built a few ships, you can stand against civilizations that were crossing the stars when your ancestors were still dwelling in caves. This is your final warning. Withdraw or be destroyed." The communication cut off abruptly. "Battle stations," Lee ordered, his voice calm but authoritative. "Shields at maximum, weapon systems online but hold fire unless I give the command." As the Defiant's crew sprang into action, Amanda moved closer to the captain. "They're bluffing," she said quietly. "The Council would never authorize a full-scale attack on a civilian colony. The political fallout would be disastrous. "Are you willing to bet 50,000 lives on that, Ambassador?" Lee asked grimly. Before she could answer, the tactical officer called out, "Captain, the Vespan vessels are changing formation. They're deploying into attack positions." "Hold steady," Lee commanded. "Maintain defensive formation around the colony. Ambassador Klein, I suggest you make one more attempt at communication. After that, my priority will be the safety of our colonists and my crew." Amanda nodded and moved to the communications station. "Open a channel to the Vespan command ship." The screen remained blank, but the communications officer nodded to indicate the channel was open. "Vespan Commander, this is Ambassador Klein again. I urge you to reconsider your actions, whatever the Council has authorized. A military attack on a civilian colony violates the most fundamental principles of galactic law, principles that the Vespan hives have championed for millennia. There is still time to find a diplomatic solution that preserves the peace and honors both our peoples." For a long moment, there was no response. Then the Vespan commander's voice came through. Audio only. "There is indeed a diplomatic solution. Ambassador, Earth may return to the Galactic Union, subject to appropriate penalties for the disruption caused by your withdrawal. All military forces developed in violation of Council restrictions will be surrendered. Human colonies will be placed under direct Council supervision for a probationary period of no less than 50 years. These terms are non-negotiable." Amanda didn't need to look at Captain Lee to know his response. She could feel the tension radiating from every human on the bridge. "Those aren't terms," she replied coldly. "They're demands for surrender. Earth withdrew from the Union to protect our sovereignty, not to exchange it for even greater subjugation. We refuse your terms." "Then you have chosen conflict," the Vespan stated. "The consequences will be on your head, Ambassador Klein." The channel closed again. Moments later, the tactical officer reported, "Vespan vessels are powering weapons and advancing on our position." "All ships, defensive pattern Delta," Lee ordered. "Prepare to engage." Amanda watched in horror as the Vespan fleet began its approach. After a century of peace under the Galactic Union, humanity was about to fight its first interstellar war against a species that had been spacefaring when humans were still inventing the wheel. "Captain," she said urgently, "we need to evacuate the colony. If this turns into a protracted conflict—" She was interrupted by a sudden alert from the sensor officer. "New contacts, multiple vessels dropping out of FTL at the system's edge." Lee tensed. "Reinforcements for the Vespans?" "Negative, sir," the officer replied, surprise evident in his voice. "Signatures match. Draconid warships, at least 20 vessels, heavy cruiser class or larger." "Draconids," Amanda whispered, remembering Grell's cryptic warning. "Are they here to help the Vespans? Or—" The question was answered almost immediately as the massive Draconid fleet accelerated into the system, taking up position between the human defenders and the advancing Vespans. "We're being hailed by the Draconid flagship," the communications officer announced. On screen, Lee ordered. The image of a Draconid commander appeared, female, judging by the more vibrant coloration of her scales, with the insignia of a high admiral on her uniform. "Earth vessels, this is Admiral Sikora of the Draconid Defense Force. We have monitored the situation and determined that the Vespan action constitutes an unauthorized aggression against a sovereign power. The Draconid Imperium does not recognize the Council's authority to conduct military operations against non-member species. We are positioning our fleet to prevent such an illegal action." Amanda stepped forward, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. "Admiral Sikora, this is Ambassador Klein. We appreciate your intervention, but I must ask, is this an official position of the Draconid government? You are still members of the Galactic Union." Sikora's reptilian features formed what might have been a smile. "For now, Ambassador, let us say that recent events have prompted the Imperium to—" reevaluate its relationship with the Council. In the meantime, we consider it our duty to prevent an unjust war." The Admiral's attention shifted to something off-screen. "The Vespens are hailing us. Stand by." The view screen split to show both Socorro and the Vespen commander, whose mandibles were now clicking so rapidly they were almost a blur. "This is an internal council matter, Admiral," the Vespen hissed. "The Draconid Imperium has no authority to interfere." "On the contrary, Commander," Socorro replied coolly. "As Earth is no longer a council member, any military action against them is an external matter, and the Imperium has always reserved the right to intervene in conflicts that threaten galactic stability, a right recognized by the Council itself in the Treaty of Rigel. The Council has determined—" "The Council has overreached," Socorro interrupted, "and the Imperium will not stand by while an independent civilization is attacked without just cause. Withdraw your forces immediately, or face the consequences." The Vespen commander seemed to vibrate with rage. "You would risk war with the Vespen hives? With the Council itself?" "If necessary," Socorro confirmed, "though I suspect that when word of this incident reaches the Central Worlds, many Council members will be quick to disavow any knowledge of your authorized action. After all, a direct military assault on a civilian world would violate numerous Union laws that still bind the Vespens, even if they no longer bind Earth." For a tense moment, it seemed the Vespen might challenge the Draconid fleet, but faced with the combined forces of Earth and the much larger Draconid armada, the commander apparently thought better of it. "This matter is not concluded," he declared. "The Council will hear of the Draconid interference. There will be consequences." "Indeed there will," Socorro agreed, "though perhaps not the ones you anticipate." The Vespen cut the communication. Moments later, their fleet began to withdraw, altering course away from Tau Ceti 4 and forming up for FTL jump. On the Defiance bridge, a cheer went up from the crew. Captain Lee allowed it briefly before restoring order with a sharp command. "Maintain battle readiness until they've left the system. This could still be a feint." Admiral Socorro, still on the view screen, inclined her head in approval. "Wise precaution, Captain. My forces will remain as well, to ensure their departure is genuine." Amanda stepped closer to the screen. "Admiral, I cannot adequately express Earth's gratitude for your intervention, but I must ask, why? Why would the Draconid Imperium risk its standing in the Council to protect a species that chose to leave?" Socorro's expression became more serious. "Ambassador Klein, what you may not realize is that Earth's withdrawal has sent shockwaves through the galaxy far beyond what you intended. For centuries, many species have chafed under Council restrictions, but lacked the courage to challenge the status quo. Humanity showed that courage, and in doing so, you have inspired others to question whether the Union truly serves their interests. The Draconids are considering withdrawal as well," Amanda realized aloud. "Among others," Socorro confirmed, "the Council's response to your departure, economic warfare, proxy attacks through pirates, and now this attempted military action has only strengthened the resolve of those who see the Union as increasingly tyrannical rather than beneficial." She leaned forward slightly. "Make no mistake, Ambassador. What began with Earth's single act of defiance may well end with the complete restructuring of galactic politics. The old order is crumbling, and what will replace it remains to be seen. But the Draconid Imperium prefers to be on the side of those who value sovereignty and self-determination, as humans clearly do. So this was less about protecting Earth and more about advancing your own agenda," Captain Lee observed. "Let us say our interests aligned perfectly in this instance," Socorro replied with another reptilian smile, "and may continue to do so in the future. The Imperium would be interested in discussing a formal alliance with Earth outside the constraints of Council oversight, of course." I'm sure our government would be very receptive to such discussions, Amanda said carefully. But first, let's ensure the Vespans have truly withdrawn. Agreed, Socorro nodded. We will maintain our protective position until the threat has passed. Then, Ambassador, perhaps you would honor me by coming aboard my flagship to begin preliminary talks. I believe we have much to discuss about the future of the galaxy, a future that our species might shape together rather than having it dictated to us by the Council. As the Draconid Admiral signed off, Captain Lee turned to Amanda with a raised eyebrow. It seems Earth's isolation may be shorter-lived than we anticipated. Perhaps, Amanda agreed thoughtfully. But we need to proceed carefully. The Draconids have their own agenda. As the Admiral all but admitted, we don't want to simply exchange one form of external control for another. Lee nodded. True, but allies in this galaxy would certainly be welcome, especially if the Council continues its campaign against us. Captain, the sensor officer's urgent call interrupted their conversation. The Vespans are leaving the system, and we're detecting more FTL signatures at the system edge. Multiple vessels incoming. Reinforcements, Lee asked tensely. Vespan or Draconid? Neither, sir, the officer replied, sounding confused. Signatures match Aquarian vessels, and behind them, Pleiadian, and more still arriving. Multiple species. Sir, most of them Council members. Amanda moved to the tactical display, watching in astonishment as ship after ship appeared at the edge of the system. They're not in attack formation, she observed. They're just gathering. The communications officer's console lit up with incoming signals. Sir, we're being hailed by multiple vessels. They're all requesting to speak with Ambassador Klein. Captain Lee looked at Amanda, his expression a mix of confusion and wry amusement. It seems you've become rather popular, Ambassador. What have you done? I'm not sure, Amanda admitted, but I think we're about to find out. Over the next several hours, Amanda conducted a series of remarkable conversations from the Defiance Communication Center. Representatives from a dozen different species, all current Council members, requested private discussions. Their messages were strikingly similar, expressions of concern over the Vespan aggression, assertions that it had not been authorized by the full Council, and most surprisingly, inquiries about Earth's experience since withdrawing from the Union. How had humanity managed the transition? What challenges had they faced? How had they reorganized their governance without Council oversight? The questions came one after another, from species as diverse as the crystalline lithics and the gaseous Selonians. By the time Amanda spoke with the last representative, a surprisingly sympathetic Aquarian who had once presided over Council sessions, a pattern had emerged that was impossible to ignore. Captain, she said, joining Lee on the bridge after hours of diplomatic discussions, I think we've severely underestimated the impact of our withdrawal. These species aren't here to threaten us or to support the Vespans. They're here to observe, to learn. Learn what, exactly? Lee asked. How to leave the Union themselves, Amanda replied. They're watching Earth as a test case. If we succeed in maintaining our independence, if we prosper without the Council, others will follow. The Draconids are simply the first and most open about their intentions. Lee whistled softly. The end of the Galactic Union, after 100,000 years, and all because humanity got fed up with committee meetings. It's more than that, Amanda corrected him. The Union has been failing for centuries, perhaps millennia, becoming more bureaucratic, less effective, more concerned with maintaining its own power than serving its members. We were just the first to say the obvious, that the Emperor has no clothes. And now? Amanda looked at the tactical display, where dozens of ships from across the galaxy hung in space, watching, waiting. Now we show them that there's another way. That species can cooperate without surrendering their sovereignty to a bloated, ineffective central authority. That the galaxy doesn't need the Union to maintain peace and prosperity. That's a tall order, Ambassador. Yes, Amanda agreed with a slight smile. But then, humanity has never been known for thinking small. 1 year after Earth's withdrawal from the Galactic Union, Amanda Klein stood at the podium in the newly constructed Hall of Nations on Earth's moon. Before her sat representatives from 27 spacefaring civilizations, some former Union members, others independent species who had never joined the galactic community until now. Distinguished delegates, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. 1 year ago, Earth stood alone, having taken the unprecedented step of withdrawing from the Galactic Union. We faced sanctions, threats, and even military aggression. Many, including some among our own people, believed we had committed a grave error, that isolation in a hostile galaxy would lead to our downfall. She paused, looking out at the assembled representatives. So many different forms of life, from the massive draconids to the tiny neuroni, whose entire delegation could fit in the palm of her hand, yet all had come together for a common purpose. Today, we stand at the dawn of a new era in galactic relations. The old Union continues to exist, diminished but still functioning. But here, in this chamber, we are building something different. Not a centralized authority that subsumes the sovereignty of its members, but a true alliance of equals. A forum for cooperation that respects the autonomy and unique character of each civilization. In the year since the confrontation at Tau Ceti, the galaxy had indeed transformed. The Draconids had been the first to follow Earth's lead, withdrawing from the Union 3 months after the Vespan incident. Others had followed, some quietly, others with public declarations of independence. With each departure, the Union's power and influence had waned. The Council had attempted to stem the tide, alternating between threats and concessions, but once the dam had broken, there was no stopping the flood. Species that had chafed under Union restrictions for centuries seized the opportunity to reclaim their sovereignty. Not all had chosen to join Earth's new alliance. Some had preferred true independence. Others had formed regional pacts with neighboring species. The galaxy was becoming more diverse, more decentralized, and paradoxically more cooperative as a result. Without the stifling bureaucracy of the Union, species were finding it easier to address shared concerns directly. The Concordat of Free Worlds that we sign today, Amanda continued, establishes principles rather than regulations. It commits us to mutual defense, fair trade, and respect for sovereign territories. It creates mechanisms for resolving disputes without surrendering authority to a central power. And perhaps most importantly, it explicitly recognizes the right of any signatory to withdraw at any time, without penalty or reprisal. She looked toward the Earth delegation, where President Rodriguez sat alongside John Moreau, now serving as Earth's foreign minister. They had worked tirelessly to build this new alliance, traveling to dozens of worlds to make the case for a different kind of galactic community. We do not claim that this new arrangement is perfect, Amanda acknowledged. We will face challenges and disagreements. We will make mistakes. But we will face these challenges as true partners, not as subjects of an unaccountable authority. And I believe that in the long run, this approach will create a more just, more peaceful, and more prosperous galaxy for all our peoples. As she concluded her speech, the chamber erupted in a cacophony of approval. Applause from the humanoid species, ululations from the avians, resonant hums from the crystalline beings. The Concordat would be signed today, marking the official birth of a new galactic order. After the ceremony, Amanda found a quiet moment alone on one of the observation decks, overlooking the lunar landscape. Earth hung in the black sky, a blue jewel that seemed simultaneously fragile and indomitable. "Quite a view," said a voice behind her. She turned to find Grell approaching, his reptilian form silhouetted against the starlit panorama. A fitting place to make history. "Ambassador Grell," she greeted him with genuine warmth. In the past year, the Draconid had become one of her closest allies and, somewhat to her surprise, a personal friend. Or should I say, Minister Grell now. He made the rumbling sound that she had come to recognize as laughter. "Titles mean little, as we have both learned. But yes, I now speak for the Imperium in all external matters, much as you do for Earth." "Not exactly," Amanda corrected him. "I'm just one of many voices now. Earth has established diplomatic relations with so many worlds that we've had to expand our core considerably." "A good problem to have," Grell observed, moving to stand beside her at the viewport. "When you stood before the Council a year ago and declared Earth's independence, did you imagine it would lead to this? The Union fractured, a new alliance formed, the very structure of galactic politics transformed." Amanda considered the question seriously. "No," she admitted finally. "I was thinking only of Earth's immediate needs, our security, our autonomy. I never imagined we would inspire a galactic revolution." "And yet you have," Grell said, "though perhaps catalyst would be more accurate than inspiration. The conditions for change were already present. The Union had been decaying from within for centuries. It just needed someone to demonstrate that an alternative was possible." "And now?" Amanda gestured toward the chamber they had left, where delegates were still mingling, forming connections that would shape the future of multiple civilizations. "What happens now?" "Now we build something better," Grell said simply. "Not perfect, as you noted in your speech, but better, more responsive to the needs of its members, more adaptable to changing circumstances, more just." He turned his gaze back to Earth, hanging in the blackness. "Your species has existed for a mere instant in cosmic terms. Your time among the stars has been even briefer, yet in that eye blink, you have altered the course of galactic history. It is remarkable." "We've had help," Amanda pointed out. "The Draconids, the Aquarians, all the others who joined us." "Indeed, but it was Earth that took the first step. Earth that walked away from galaxy politics and caused the universe to, as your colorful human idiom puts it, freak out." Grell's mandibles twitched in what she now recognized as amusement. "And I, for one, am grateful. The Union had become a prison for many of us, its rules and restrictions more burdensome with each passing century. Now we are free to chart our own course among the stars." Amanda nodded, feeling a profound sense of both accomplishment and responsibility. What had begun as an act of frustration and self-preservation had evolved into something much larger, a fundamental reshaping of how intelligent species interacted across the vast gulfs of space. There would be challenges ahead, certainly. The remnants of the Union were already showing signs of hardening into a more militaristic, authoritarian structure as the more independent-minded species departed. Tensions between the old order and the new concordat seemed inevitable, and within the alliance itself, differences of culture, biology, and history would undoubtedly lead to conflicts that would test the new framework they had created. But looking at Earth, at home, Amanda felt confident that they had made the right choice. Humanity had walked away from a broken system and, in doing so, had created the opportunity for something better to take its place, not just for themselves, but for countless beings across the galaxy. "We should rejoin the others," she said finally. "There's still much work to be done." "Always," Grell agreed, "but perhaps that is as it should be. The work of building a better galaxy never ends. We have simply begun a new chapter in that eternal story." Together, they turned from the viewport and walked back toward the chamber, where representatives of 27 worlds were forging connections that would shape the future of galactic civilization, a future built not on centralized authority and bureaucratic control, but on mutual respect, voluntary cooperation, and the fundamental right of all species to determine their own destiny among the stars. Earth had walked away, and the universe, after its initial freakout, was finding its way to a new and better equilibrium.